You see, for decades we've been told the same story. Work hard in school, get good grades, polish your resume, and then go out and hunt for a job. It was the formula handed down from one generation to the next, and for many years it seemed to work. But the truth is, that world doesn't exist anymore. The old system is broken, yet so many people are still clinging to it like it's the only boat on the water, when in reality it's already sinking. Think about it. Millions of graduates pour out of universities every single year across the globe. The promise they were sold, that a degree guarantees security, has evaporated. Instead, they find themselves competing for the same limited number of positions, sending out application after application, hoping to be noticed by someone who often doesn't even read beyond the first line of their CV. It's a system that thrives on scarcity, where only a small handful get in and the rest are left questioning their worth. And that's the tragedy. It's not just an economic problem, it's a psychological one. People begin to tie their value as human beings to whether or not a stranger in HR selects them. Now let's reflect a little deeper. Human beings are wired with creativity, intelligence, and an endless capacity to solve problems. Yet this broken system reduces us to boxes and bullet points, years of experience, job titles, skills lists. Tell me, how can a piece of paper ever capture the richness of your life, the depth of your potential? It cannot. And yet countless bright minds are crushed simply because their resume didn't fit some artificial mold. The system is blind to what you could actually contribute. It is only looking at what you already did, and even then through a distorted lens. The more you chase this outdated model, the more you are forced into dependence. You hand over the steering wheel of your life to someone else, waiting for their approval before you move forward. And that is the greatest tragedy of all, not that jobs are scarce, but that we have been conditioned to think this scarcity is normal. It is not. Scarcity is created when we believe opportunity can only come from one door. But let's pause for a moment. Have you noticed how the world has shifted dramatically in the last decade? Entire industries have been transformed by technology, the internet, and digital platforms. The rules of the game have changed completely. Yet the traditional system of study hard, get a job has not updated itself. It's still running on an operating system from the last century. That's why so many are frustrated. It's like trying to play a modern game on an outdated device. It simply crashes. Philosophically, the danger of this system lies in its power to limit your imagination. It makes you believe your only worth is in being employed. But history tells us the opposite. Every breakthrough, every revolution, every shift in human progress has come from people who refused to be boxed in by the approved path. They created, they innovated, they carved new roads. If you only accept what the system gives you, you surrender your greatest gift, the ability to shape your own destiny. So here's the uncomfortable truth. Chasing jobs is not just inefficient, it's disempowering. You are worth infinitely more than the number of interviews you've landed or the number of offers you've received. The problem isn't you, the problem is the outdated framework you've been trying to succeed in. Once you see this clearly, everything changes. You stop blaming yourself, and you start questioning the system itself. And in that questioning, a new path emerges, the path where you no longer wait for permission to contribute, but instead build, create, and design your own value. I want you to let this sink in. If you keep playing by the rules of a broken game, you cannot win. And the reason so many people feel stuck is because they are playing a game that was never designed for their success in the first place. When you truly understand that, you stop chasing and start leading. So remember this, the old system is broken, but that's not a reason to despair. It's an invitation to rise. Don't let the collapse of a tired structure discourage you. Let it awaken you. The door you thought was closed was never the only door. Step back, look around, and you'll see that the world is full of open doors waiting for those bold enough to walk through them. And I'll leave you with this thought. If you keep waiting for someone else to hand you an opportunity, you may wait a lifetime. But if you realize the system is broken and decide to create your own, your lifetime becomes the opportunity. Once you've seen that the old system is broken, the next question becomes, so what now? If we don't chase jobs anymore, what do we do? And the answer is simple but powerful. You stop chasing and you start creating. Let's think about this carefully. When you chase something, you're always behind it. You're always waiting for it to stop, for it to turn towards you, for it to finally give you the acknowledgement you seek. That's what job hunting is. You spend your days applying, hoping, waiting for someone else to notice you. It's exhausting, and even when you do get the opportunity, it often comes with conditions, limitations, and ceilings placed on your growth. But when you shift from chasing to creating, the entire dynamic changes. You are no longer running after opportunities, You are building them. You are no longer dependent on approval. You are producing value directly from within yourself, and that changes not just your career, it changes your identity. Now let's pause and look at this from a psychological angle. Human beings are at their healthiest, their happiest, and their most alive when they are in the act of creating. Think about it: a child drawing on a blank page, an artist painting a canvas, an entrepreneur building a small business, a teacher designing a lesson. All of them are tapping into something innate, something deeply human. It is our natural state to build, to bring ideas to life, to shape the raw material of our thoughts into something others can benefit from. That's when we feel most purposeful. Yet, the system has taught us the opposite. It has trained us to wait, to hope, to rely on someone else giving us the chance. And slowly, many people forget that they actually have the power to create. They begin to think, if no one hires me, then I am useless. That is not true. It has never been true. Your worth is not in being chosen. Your worth is in your ability to contribute. And contribution doesn't begin with someone's permission. It begins with you deciding to act. Now, I'm not talking only about building a massive company or launching some groundbreaking invention. Starting small is still creating. Offering your skill to help someone, sharing your knowledge online, selling a service, or even simply documenting your journey. All of this is creating. The key difference is that you're moving from being reactive, waiting for opportunities, to being proactive, making opportunities. Philosophically, creation is what aligns us with the nature of progress. If you look at every major advancement in history, it was never made by those who spent their whole lives begging for approval. It was made by people who built something, even if it was small at first. They didn't chase, they created. And the moment you start creating, you stop feeling powerless. Let's reflect spiritually for a moment. Every one of us is gifted with unique talents, perspectives, and passions. They were not placed in us by accident. They are there to be used, to be shared, to uplift not just ourselves, but the world around us. Yet if you spend your whole life chasing jobs, you may never unlock those gifts fully, because you are too busy trying to fit into someone else's structure. Creation frees you from that. It allows you to align your work with your purpose. Think about it this way. When you chase, you are asking the world, what can you give me? But when you create, you are asking yourself, what can I give the world? That is a powerful shift. And it doesn't just affect your career, it transforms your mindset. You stop living in scarcity, and you start living in abundance. Of course, this shift requires courage. It's easier to chase because chasing gives you the illusion of safety. You feel like at least you're following a familiar path. But real growth, real independence comes when you decide, I will no longer wait for someone else's decision. I will create my own way. That doesn't mean the journey is easy, but it does mean the journey is yours. And here's the beauty of it. Once you begin creating, you discover that opportunities come to you. Instead of you knocking on doors, people begin to knock on yours. You stop asking to be included because you are now building something that others want to be part of. That's the paradox. When you stop chasing and start creating, what you are chasing begins to find you. So let me leave you with this. Chasing may give you a paycheck, but creating will give you freedom. Stop asking the world for permission to live your purpose. Start creating today, even if it's small, even if no one notices at first. Because when you create, you are no longer at the mercy of chance. You are stepping into the power of choice. When we talk about creating instead of chasing, the next question that naturally comes is, where do we create? How do we begin? And here lies one of the greatest blessings of the time we live in, the digital economy. Never in human history has the playing field been so wide open. Never before have ordinary people had the tools to reach thousands, even millions, without waiting for permission from anyone. Let's think about it for a moment. Just 2 decades ago, if you wanted to start a business, you needed large amounts of capital, access to infrastructure, connections, and endless paperwork. Today, with nothing more than a phone in your hand and an internet connection, you can reach the world. You can sell products, teach skills, design services, build communities, publish ideas, and create wealth, all without knocking on anyone's office door. The gatekeepers have been removed and the doors are wide open. Yet tragically, many people still stand outside the gate waiting for it to be unlocked, when in fact it is no longer locked at all. Psychologically, the digital economy represents a shift in power. It decentralizes opportunity. Before, opportunity was concentrated in the hands of employers, institutions, and big corporations, but now anyone with creativity, consistency, and discipline can carve out a space. Think of freelancers offering their services online, creators sharing their work with the world, consultants running businesses from their living rooms, or entrepreneurs turning simple ideas into global platforms. The tools are already in our hands, it's our mindset that needs to catch up. But here's something deeper. The digital economy doesn't just provide financial opportunity, it provides psychological freedom. Because when you build in the digital space, you realize that your reach is not limited by geography, class, or background. You might be in a small town, but your work can touch someone on the other side of the world. You might start with just a few skills, but with the vast resources available online, you can learn, improve, and expand at a pace no university can match. That realization that your environment no longer defines your destiny liberates you. It removes the excuses. It forces you to confront the real question. Are you willing to step into this space, or will you keep holding on to the old broken system? Now let's reflect on the philosophy behind it. Human beings have always advanced by finding ways to exchange value. In ancient times it was barter. Later it was currency and trade. Today the new marketplace is digital. This is not just a technological shift, it is an existential one. It means the way humans connect, collaborate, and create wealth has fundamentally changed. To ignore it is not simply to miss out on opportunities, it is to deny the reality of the age we live in. And yes, I know the digital economy can feel overwhelming. It's vast, it's fast, it's constantly evolving. But here's the truth. You don't need to master everything. You just need to start somewhere. Choose one skill, one platform, one project. Share what you know, offer what you can. Build one small thing and let it grow. The beauty of this space is that momentum multiplies. A single video can inspire millions. A small online store can expand globally. A simple blog can become a thriving business. You don't need permission, and you don't need perfection. You just need the courage to begin. Let's also acknowledge the deeper dimension here. The digital economy allows you to align your work with your values. You no longer have to fit into someone else's structure. You can design your own. If you care about education, you can teach online. If you care about art, you can create and share it. If you care about helping others, you can coach, consult, or mentor. You are no longer bound to serve systems that drain you. You can build systems that reflect you. And that is where true fulfillment lies. Of course, some will say, but isn't it risky? Isn't it uncertain? Yes, it is. But so is chasing jobs in a system that is already collapsing. At least here, you are betting on yourself. At least here, you are building assets that belong to you, not a company that can replace you tomorrow. And that is the wiser risk. So I say to you, do not stand at the sidelines of the greatest shift in human opportunity, watching as others build, and wondering if you should try. Step in, start small, grow steadily. But most importantly, understand that the digital economy is not the future. It is the present. The doors are already open. You simply need to walk through them. And I'll leave you with this. In a world where opportunity now lives in the palm of your hand, the greatest limitation is no longer access, it is belief. Believe in your ability to create, step into the digital space, and you will find that the opportunities you were once chasing are already waiting for you. Now that we understand the power of the digital economy, the next step is to make it personal. Because it's one thing to know the opportunities are there. It's another to realize that you already carry the raw material within yourself. And that raw material is your skills and your passions. Think about it. Every one of us has something we are good at, something we know, something we love doing, or something we've learned through experience. Yet for many people, these things remain hidden, unused, or dismissed as unimportant. They say, oh, that's just a hobby, or that's just something I do on the side. But let me remind you, what you take for granted, others might be willing to pay for. What feels ordinary to you may be extraordinary to someone else. The tragedy is that most people underestimate the value of their skills. They think value only comes from a degree or a job title. But let's be honest, who taught you that idea? The system. The very same system that reduced your potential to a piece of paper. If you look deeper, you'll realize value has always come from one thing: solving problems. And if your skills, your knowledge, or your passion can solve even a small problem for someone else, then you have something valuable. Let's reflect on this philosophically. Passion is not an accident. It is not random. The things that light you up, the skills that come naturally to you, the activities that give you energy, these are clues. They are signs pointing you towards your purpose. And purpose, when aligned with service, always creates value. But here's the challenge: many of us have been conditioned to separate passion from work. We are told passion is for our free time and work is something else entirely. As a result, people drag themselves through jobs they don't enjoy, while the very things that could liberate them lie untouched in the background of their lives. Now imagine this shift. What if the very thing you love, the thing that energizes you, could also sustain you? This is where the digital economy becomes powerful. It allows you to take a passion or skill and present it to the world in ways that were never possible before. You like teaching? Create an online course. You enjoy writing? Share it, publish it, and build an audience. You're good at designing, speaking, coaching, fixing things, cooking, or analyzing data? Every single one of these has a place in the marketplace today. You are no longer limited to your immediate environment. You can serve people across the globe. But let's also go deeper into the psychology here. Monetizing your skills and passions is not just about money, it's about dignity. It's about realizing that what you carry inside you has value and you don't need anyone else's permission to express it. It shifts you from a mindset of dependence to one of contribution. Instead of waiting for someone to give you a paycheck, you're saying, I already have something to give and the world will recognize it when I share it. That's empowering. It builds confidence, self-respect, and momentum. Of course, people will ask, but what if my passion is not profitable? And that's a fair question. Not every passion in its raw form will generate income. But here's the key: passions are often seeds. They can be refined, shaped, and connected to real-world needs. For example, someone who loves drawing may not sell art immediately, but they can illustrate books, design graphics, teach sketching, or build an audience through content. Someone who loves fitness may not open a gym overnight, but they can start coaching, sharing routines online, or guiding others one step at a time. Passion on its own is a flame. Combined with service, it becomes a torch that lights the way. Remember this: skills can be learned, passions can be nurtured, and together they can be monetized. But you must believe that what you have is worthy. If you dismiss your abilities, the world will too. If you undervalue your passions, no one else will recognize them. The first sale is not to a client, it is to yourself. You must buy into your own potential before anyone else can. And yes, it takes courage. It's easier to hide your skills in the background than to put them out into the world. It's easier to say, I'll keep this as a hobby, than to risk rejection. But ask yourself, would you rather spend your life ignoring your gifts or risk sharing them and discovering the impact they can make? So I urge you, stop separating who you are from how you earn. Stop believing your skills are small. Stop burying your passions under the excuse of practicality. The world is waiting, and it's waiting for what you already have. And I'll leave you with this: your greatest wealth is not in what you chase, but in what you carry within. If you dare to share your skills and passions with the world, they will not only sustain you, they will set you free. By now you can see the pattern. The old system wants you to keep chasing jobs. We said stop chasing, start creating. We said the digital economy is the new ground to build on. And then we spoke about taking your skills and passions and turning them into something valuable. But here is the deeper level. You must focus not on building a resume, but on building assets. Let me explain. A resume is like a sales brochure. It tries to convince someone else to give you a chance. It lists what you've done in the past, but it doesn't necessarily show what you can truly do now. And here's the problem. A resume has no power until someone else looks at it. On its own, it sits there, lifeless, waiting for validation. An asset, on the other hand, has power, whether or not anyone is looking at it. An asset works for you even while you sleep. Think of it like this: when you spend your life polishing a resume, you are polishing your appeal to others. But when you spend your life building assets, you are polishing your contribution to the world. A resume says, here is why you should hire me. An asset says, here is value I've already created. And value is far more powerful than a list of past achievements. Let's take an example. Suppose someone applies for a teaching job with a resume that lists their degrees and experience. They may or may not get the role. Now imagine another person who builds a YouTube channel where they share short lessons, or creates an online course, or writes a book. Even if no one hires them, they already have an asset. The content they created will continue to reach people, generate income, and build credibility. That's the difference. One is dependent on someone else's decision. The other is independent and self-sustaining. Psychologically, this is a radical shift, because when you build assets, you stop thinking in terms of how do I impress and start thinking in terms of how do I impact. And impact is what truly gives your life meaning. You're not defined by how well you fit into someone else's structure. You are defined by the structures you build yourself. Now let's go deeper. What exactly is an asset? An asset is anything you create that continues to give value without requiring your constant effort. It could be a book, a digital course, a product, a piece of software, a brand, a community, or even intellectual property. These are things that, once built, continue to serve people and generate results for you again and again. Compare that with a resume, which expires the moment you hand it in. One is temporary, the other is enduring. There is also a spiritual dimension to this. When you build assets that serve others, you are leaving behind something greater than yourself. You're not just working for a paycheck, you are building a legacy. Your work outlives you. Your knowledge, your creativity, your service becomes a seed that grows in ways you may never even see. That is far more noble, far more fulfilling than a line on a resume that will be forgotten once the job changes. But let's be real, it takes more effort to build an asset. It's easier to sit down and edit a resume than to sit down and write a book. It's easier to apply for jobs than to spend months building a course or developing a product. But here's the key: what is easy now often leads to difficulty later, and what is difficult now often leads to freedom later. Building assets requires patience, but it pays you back for years to come. A resume may open a single door once, but an asset can open countless doors for a lifetime. So the question you must ask yourself is this: will I spend my energy building something that disappears the moment I hand it over, or will I invest my energy into something that keeps giving back? One path makes you dependent, the other makes you free. I want you to imagine, just for a moment, if you stopped polishing your resume and started polishing your own platform. Imagine, instead of endlessly editing bullet points, you spent that time writing your first ebook. Imagine, instead of refreshing job boards, you spent that time recording tutorials or building a product. In a few months, you wouldn't just have a resume, you would have an asset. Something that belongs to you, that speaks for you, that works for you, even when you're not working. And that is what we need in this age, not more resumes floating around, but more people bold enough to build assets. Because when you build assets, you are no longer just part of the system, you are shaping it. So I'll leave you with this: a resume dies the moment someone discards it, but an asset lives as long as it continues to serve. Don't waste your life building something temporary. Build what endures, and it will not only carry you forward, it will carry others with you. We've spoken about the broken system, the importance of creating instead of chasing, the opportunities in the digital economy, the need to monetize your skills and passions, and the power of building assets instead of resumes. But here is where many people still hesitate. They understand all of this in theory. They nod, they agree, they feel inspired, and yet they delay. They wait for the right moment. They wait for the perfect plan. They wait until they feel completely ready. And that waiting often becomes permanent. This is why the final step is so crucial. You must adopt what I call the instant start mentality. In other words, stop waiting. Begin now with what you already have, where you already are. Because the perfect moment you are waiting for will never come. Let's be honest, life is never neatly arranged. There will always be obstacles, uncertainties, and doubts. If you wait for everything to line up before you begin, you will spend your life standing still. The truth is, readiness does not come before action. Readiness is created by action. You only feel prepared after you start, never before. Think about a child learning to walk. They don't wait until they've mastered balance to take their first step. They take the step, they fall, they get back up, and through that process they learn balance. In the same way, you will never feel perfectly confident to create, to build, to share your skills. You gain confidence by doing. You grow into the role by stepping into it. The mistake is believing you must be flawless before you begin. Philosophically, this hesitation reveals a deeper fear, the fear of failure. We tell ourselves, if I wait a little longer, maybe I'll get it right the first time. But let me tell you, no one gets it right the first time. Every great creator, every successful entrepreneur, every innovator you admire, they all began imperfectly. Their first attempt was rough. Their early steps were messy. What set them apart was not perfection but persistence. They started before they were ready, and they improved along the way. And here's something liberating to realize: the world does not expect you to be perfect. It expects you to be authentic. People connect more deeply with honesty than with flawlessness. If you start small, if you are genuine in what you share, people will grow with you. Your journey becomes part of the value you give. Now, psychologically, the instant start mentality also destroys procrastination. Because procrastination is often just disguised fear. You tell yourself, I'm researching, I'm preparing, I'm thinking it through. But deep down, you're afraid to begin. And the longer you delay, the heavier that fear becomes. The way to break it is not to think more, but to act. Even the smallest action today has more power than 1,000 plans for tomorrow. Let's bring in a spiritual dimension. When you begin, even with little, it shows gratitude for the gifts you've been given. It shows that you trust the process. You're saying, I may not have everything, but I will use what I do have. And that intention opens doors. It attracts opportunities, resources, and people that you could never have imagined if you had remained still. The universe rewards movement. Doors open for those who knock, not for those who only think about knocking. Some people will say, but I don't have the right tools. Yet history shows that many of the world's greatest movements began with less than what you already have in your pocket right now. Some of the most successful businesses started from kitchens, garages, and spare bedrooms. Some of the greatest thinkers wrote books on scraps of paper. They didn't wait for the perfect tool, they used what was in their hands. Others will say, but what if I fail? And the answer is simple: you will, at least at first. But failure is not the opposite of success, it is part of success. Every attempt teaches you something, sharpens you, shapes you. If you never fail, you never grow. So failure is not your enemy, inaction is. So I tell you, stop looking at the mountain and saying, it's too high. Start climbing. Even if you take one step today, you are no longer at the bottom. You are already on the journey. And journeys are not completed by waiting. They are completed by walking. So let me leave you with this. There is no better time than now. And there is no better place than here. And there is no better person than you. Don't wait for the perfect plan. Don't wait for permission. Begin now, with what you have, with where you are. Because when you start instantly, you unlock a power that waiting will never give you: the power of momentum.